Hi everyone. Today we are going to do some more editing practice. Remember, editing means checking what you've written again and again so that you can catch as many mistakes as possible. Usually it's best if you read your work a few times, maybe even up to 5. Try and catch as many mistakes as you can. That way your work sounds a bit more polished and professional. Today we're going to be looking at a piece about temperatures and how they affect our lives. Make sure you have your copy of the sheet in front of you and your marker and pen and board ready to go. I'm going to start by reading the piece to you, and as I go, see if you can catch any mistakes on your own. Feel free to circle them when you see them. Let's get started. Temperatures affect our lives. Depending on how hot or cold it is, we wear different clothes, do different activities, and make changes in our houses. For example, when it is cold outside, we turn on the furnace inside. When it is warm out, we can garden and grow fruits and vegetables to eat. Often, the temperatures change each season. Hopefully you were able to spot a few mistakes. I'm going to read it one more time. See if you can catch any new mistakes this time around. Temperatures affect our lives. Depending on how hot or cold it is, we wear different clothes, do different activities, and make changes in our houses. For example, when it is cold outside, we turn on the furnace inside. When it is warm out, we can garden and grow fruits and vegetables to eat. Often, the temperatures change each season. Hopefully you spotted a few more mistakes. Now let's go through this word by word, piece by piece, and see what else we can find. Well, I'm noticing something right at the very beginning of the very first sentence. There is no uppercase letter. Whenever it's the beginning of a sentence, you must start with an uppercase letter. So in this case, it should be an uppercase T. Other than that, the word temperatures looks just fine. Temperatures affect our lives. There's 2 more problems in this sentence to be aware of. The first is with the word are. You see, this are sounds an awful lot like another word, are. There are 2 ways to spell are. The proper way to say are is our in this sentence. Temperatures affect our lives. That is, the lives belong to us. But sometimes when we speak, we pronounce it as are instead of our, which makes it a bit confusing. Are should be our and are. But remember, sometimes this way sounds just like the bottom spelling. This version of are, or our, means that something belongs to us. And this is the regular version of are, as in there are some kids. We need to fix it. The lives belong to us, so we should use our, O-U-R. There's another problem. If you look at the word lives, it actually says lives. This is a word that needs a magic E. Circle it and let's write it properly on our whiteboards. L, I, V, Z. The magic E makes the vowel say its own name. Lives. You don't actually pronounce the E, you skip it. It's only there to cast the magic spell. Let's try reading our first sentence over again. Temperatures affect our lives. That looks great, and it ends with a period. Depending. Wait a second, this is the beginning of a new sentence because it came after punctuation, in this case a period. That means the first letter needs to be in uppercase. Let's practice our uppercase D. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, lift, back to the top, curve forward, close it. Uppercase letters are needed at the beginning of each and every sentence, following punctuation, such as periods, question marks, and exclamation marks. Depending on how hot, there's something wrong with the word hot. Can you figure out what it is? There's a random uppercase letter at the end of the word hot. That's not necessary. Uppercase letters only go at the beginning of important words, beginning of a sentence, or in the case of I by itself is big. Let's replace it with a lowercase t. That would be much better. Depending on how hot or cold it is, we wear different... Oh, that doesn't say different. It's supposed to, but it actually says different. There's a letter missing. Differet. Differet. I wanted to say different. Can you figure out the missing letter? It's supposed to go right here, between the E and the T. Maybe what I'll do is make a really big mark, like that. Hopefully you realize the missing letter is N. In fact, N and T go together to make an ending blend on words. They sound like this. When you say the word different, you can hear the ending blend. Different. Let's go back to the beginning of that sentence. Depending on how hot or cold it is, we wear different clothes, do different activities, and make changes in our houses. In this sentence, I'm giving different examples of things people do when the temperatures change. Every time I give a new example in my list, I should have a comma. So the first example was about wearing different clothes. Now I'm going to put a comma. Comma's kind of like a period, except you don't stop for quite as long. It's more of a pause or a hesitation. Depending on how hot or cold it is, we wear different clothes. That's one thing in the list. Do different activities. That's another thing in the list. And since the next thing in the list starts with and, we don't need another comma. Let's look at the word activities. There's a problem with the ending. Well, you would think activities ends with an S, because if you take it away, it says activity. So you would think you just need to add an S to it, but there's a special rule for words that end in Y, or most of them anyways. Let's write the word activity on our whiteboard. Act. Iv. It. E. The word activity has a Y at the end. Activity. So the rule is, if you want to say there is more than one activity, as in there are many activities, you can't just add an S. Before you do it, you have to change the Y to an I, then add ES, like this. Change the Y to an I, then add ES. Now it says activities. This rule can be applied to many words that end in a Y. Here's another example. This is the word party, as in birthday party. Well, if you wanted to say birthday parties, you can't just add an S, because party ends in a Y. If you want to make it parties, before you add that S, change the Y to an I, then add ES. This is a rule for saying there are more than one of a particular noun if the word ends in a Y. So the word activities on our sheet should have changed the Y to an I, then add ES. Let's go back to the beginning of that sentence. Remember to always go back to the beginning after each mistake you make. Depending on how hot or cold it is, we wear different clothes, do different activities, and make changes in our houses. Look, we used the right version of are here, just like at the first sentence. It sounds like are, but if you're saying it properly, it should be our. The houses belong to us. The period marks the end of a sentence, so this next word should start with an uppercase F. Let's print an uppercase F. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, lift, back to the top, forward, lift, to the middle, forward. uppercase F is needed because it's the beginning of a sentence. Let's get going with the new sentence. For example, when it is cold outside, there's a problem with outside. Right now it says outsid. Let's circle the word. Well, if I want that I to say its name, there's something I need to put on the end of the word. Hopefully you remember it's a magic E. Let's start by writing out. Now write side, side. Put the magic E on the end. Show the magic jumping over backwards one letter. Now the I says its name. Outside. Outside. Remember, you don't say outsidey. The E is quiet. It's just there to cast magic and nothing else. For example, when it is cold outside, we turn on the furnace inside. Wait a second. Same mistake as with outside. Can you spot it? It says insid, just like it said outsid. What do you need to put on the end to make it say outside? Pardon me, inside. We can use the same word from before, except we only have to change the first syllable. Let's change the out into in. Now it says inside. The magic E is making the vowel say its name. There's a period. That sentence is finished. So the very next letter must be uppercase, not lowercase. If you're printing an uppercase W, it looks the same as a lowercase, except it starts higher up on the top line. Then you slide forward, bounce up, slide forward, bounce up. Just like lowercase, go up a bit higher. There are too many periods in this next sentence. Every time I see a period, I'm supposed to stop and take a deep breath. That makes the writing difficult to read. When, it, is, well, that's going to slow us down way too much. We only put a period after we've told something. If I put a period after when, well, that doesn't tell us anything. If I put a period after it, no one's going to understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to cross out these periods with an X. They're not necessary in that place. When it is warm out, we can garden and grow fruits and vegetables to eat. There's a proper period. I finished telling something. Now the next letter can be an uppercase O. That's funny. When I circle the lowercase o, it actually makes it look like an uppercase O. Often, the temperatures change each season. And that's the end of our piece. Hopefully you were able to catch on to many of the mistakes. Remember when you do your own writing to read it again and again so that it can be the best possible. See you next time.